Hello there, beloved Ascension Pioneers, and welcome to this energy and ascension update for the month of December. As you know, the energies are continuous. They're always in moving, they're always in motion, they're always co-creating. So what I'm going to share as this general update doesn't just stand for the month of December, but I'm going to share, as always, about the certain and particular essences that are being seeded at this time and as guided through Spirit. So first, I'm going to go into the basics. I'm going to share some of the overviews, and then I'm going to speak about some of the things that Spirit emphasized for this crucial time, okay? So in numerology, you know, December this year will be a 20. So this is a 2 when we count it as single digits, a 2 universal month within an 8 universal year. And I've shared with you before in previous updates that during this 8 universal year, we've been going through a lot of personal soul alchemy, a lot of mastery on our own behalf, which means that we have been totally embracing ourselves as a unique essence that we are. So the whole emphasis of this month is coming into our essence and realizing that we are an essence, that cannot be in a way copied or filtered or changed from without. So on this note, I wish to share with all of you that it was very interesting that this month in November I received a lot of, not just one, but a few of letters from people that they've seen my work being copied, and some people said that some people are copying what I'm doing. And what I have here to say is that this is an interesting unfolding of what does it mean to be within an essence? Because I've seen this myself with my own eyes. And you know, it means that to be an essence means that whatever we do from within. It's our essence that's being shared and transferred through our work. It cannot be something that we maybe gathered as a pile of information and then we say, okay, this is what we do. And basically we just gather bits and pieces that are already shared within the collective, which means we need to find that authentic space, that space of authenticity. And this month is really about coming into our essence. So when we realize that when we are in that authentic essence, even if other people are going to copy us or do what we do, they're never going to be able to copy our essence, if you know what I mean. The essence is what's being shared. So in a way, if we still work within the fear mode of, oh my gosh, you know, my work is being copied, and there's a beautiful divine companion who just recently updated me about the word that I didn't know how to pronounce in the previous news update, which is plagiarism. So this energy is about basically just taking what is without and, you know, gathering different bits and pieces of information, but it's never going to be quite fully authentic. So when we really ripen, mature into our essence, we will see that even if we find actions of that on the outside, we will realize that in the end it doesn't matter because everybody's evolving in their own way, and if that's through copying others, it must be a part of what they need to go through on a soul experience. So I remember a while ago the things that, you know, that they bring me some upset, because in a way some people don't realize that when you do this work of Spirit, it's a 24/7 constant dedication. It's not just gathering some information and then sharing it in this video. It's a constant, you know, preparation of your vehicle to be in purity so that only the purest light can come through, so that you can really share what's really crucial at this time and what's necessary, not just, you know, gathering some bits and pieces from without and, you know, doing and taking what others are doing and then sharing it as an external value. So our essence is the internal value. And the more we come into this essence, the more we realize, like I've said, it cannot be copied, it cannot be shared or duplicated. It's really unique just to us. And I've been stressing this in all of my videos, basically, if you've been following those videos, that it's really time for us to be fully heart-centered, which means you cannot bypass your authentic essence. There's a lot of people who think they're being authentic because they think they need to be spiritual in a certain way, but it's the vibration that we hold. You know, sometimes people say, how come this person does so much of the, you know, preparation work and then meditate the proper way and they do all this reading, and still, you know, they can't attain a certain state that someone does by just being themselves, because it's an essence. It's not what we do in terms of how we approach spirituality. So the essence is how we live a spiritual life through the uniqueness of our soul, the expression that is completely uniquely creative just for us. And I've noticed that there's a lot of beings who, they were in the closed circles for a while, and they've taken some words that I've shared and they've used them in their own sharing, but the words were completely the same. And yet if somebody else says it from the space of non-authenticity, the word will be empty because it will not have that direct understanding and value as it has when it's shared through the essence. So that's all I wanted to share here, that basically there's a path of unfolding, of evolving into that, and it takes the soul maturity for us to come into the essence of who we are, because a lot of times we think we are in the essence, but we truly are not. So let's go back to this, and although this is the main theme and the archetype of nurturing that essence, let's go back to this time, because in November, in this month, we've had this huge transformation phase. A lot of us have felt death, not just personally, you know, there's a lot of people who've lost their physical, members of the physical family, or maybe even soul family, and they've moved on to other experiences. But basically, the most important death that we can experience is that inner alchemical process. And whenever we travel through those Scorpio realms, we have huge initiations. And you know, I've shared this with you before, the month of November, which is an 11 month, is a gateway month. Every year there's the most intense energy because it prepares us for the culmination of the ending of the year, which is basically a generalized cycle. I'll talk about the microcycles and, you know, the greater cycles that we have and experience, because this is also part of living through our essence, not what we perceive from without. It's important, you know. This will be shared within this update too, so be patient. What this means is that we each have unique cycles within that which we perceive as grander cycles. So every one of us has experienced a certain degree of this death energy in our reality. And it doesn't mean that physically you have to experience as someone dying, but it's parts of you that are dying off, you know, making room for the new. And a lot of times this energy was feared because the Scorpio represents almost like this going into the underworld, being submersed in this energy and just really feeling like, you know, to be in this mode of complete light, even though you feel that there's almost like a feeling of you can't move forward. There's a lack of this energy that will move you forward. There's a lack of this divinity that will be with you even at this darkest times. So we were just reading this book about, it's a children's book basically. It's Earth Sea trilogies, and the second book is about the initiations and the high priestesses and how they lived, you know. So they were the only ones who were basically allowed to govern the underworld. So where they put all of that which they feared, like certain prisoners, you know, people who were being kept captive in captivity, and you know, so the priestesses were the only ones who were supposed to remember this from their past lives already, because they were supposed to be reincarnated souls in that term. So they were supposed to have this knowledge how to deal with those things. And when people who were playing these external games, you know, ruling who rules over who, they came for advice, they came for guidance to the high priestesses, because they couldn't handle it on their own. So basically what they evolved was still, you know, there was a lot of perception of fear. So this underworld energy, you know, they were in the book, they were going in the underworld, and they were going to see how these prisoners, how they handle them, what's going to happen to them, where there's certain corridors, and how, you know, you handle these things as a high priestess. And the thing is that the perception was still so much of fear. And most people said, well, I can go there, it's only for the high priestesses. So it's how we think in the collective, you know, when we face those shadow aspects as, oh, I can't go there, it's too much. And a lot of times not facing it will be even more challenging than facing it. And let's face it, we've been moving through these purgatory times in a way during these 3 years from 2012 on, and I'm going to share more about these cycles. So we have certain cycles that we need to go through, otherwise we won't come into our right maturity. It's what our soul needs. So sometimes people say, wow, I've been living in this fear mode, I've been living in my own inner bubble, or I've felt like I need to do this all by myself, you know, I didn't always share with others. And even those bubbles or periods of isolation, it's what you actually chosen to go through. It's not wrong, it wasn't a mistake, you know. It's time that we realize that every cycle was a micro, tiny little cycle within the greater macro cycle. So this numerology that we're faced with this time, which is a 2 universal month, is about partnership and friendship. So our first partnership, as you know, is always with spirit. It's always with spirit. And the thing is that this year it could be felt how the holiday season came early. It already came towards the end of November. And this means that this spirit of cheerfulness, of bringing that light, you know, because in the northern hemisphere we have the darkest, the coldest days here now, and this means that our inner light has to be the brightest at this time, because at this time nature goes to sleep. You know, us humans are keeping that light. It's how it's supposed to be, but a lot of times we just want to fall asleep with the rest of the stuff, and you know, we do go much more in the hibernation mode than the rest of nature, but we're still an intrinsic part of nature, so we need to trust when we will be guided into a little bit of retreat and hibernation, and when we will be guided to act, you know, externally as well, and do certain steps and basically modify the reality. So this can bring this unions, this energy of union and partnership and cooperation can bring this sense of needing to connect more, which is about, after going through that rebirth, now you want to emerge, now you want to celebrate, your achievements, and this is what it's about. The archetype we're working with this month is Empress. So I've been receiving myself guidance of the Empress, which is a 3-number in Tarot, which is basically also the representation of Earth, Mother Gaia, the reverence of life. So it is about rejoicing as well. It's about nurture and replenishing, and it's about seeding those things that we have been so much focused on with love. And this also deals with, in the connection with the Ascension guidance that I've received about Hilarion, which is the archetype of Saturn as well, which is about committing through, you know, evolution and higher ideals, more ideas coming up with the greater, maybe even not just emergence in our spirituality, but our spirituality is linked with our materiality, so new ideas about inventions and things in science as well, which means that this Empress archetype, as we perceive sometimes as this great earthly mother, is not separate from this more scientific approach, which is also how then we will live in the physical, through the approach of tending to our spirituality in both ways, you know, bringing that which is the essence of earth and then taking it into every development, every scientific research or discovery, but to enhance and enrich our living realities so that they become more spirit-filled, not just externally based, you know. So this Empress archetype is something that's also connected with how do we nurture our relationships? How do we basically function in our relationships as an integrated whole? Because 3 is always a number of divine trinity. It's that integration of all aspects within us. So these seeds of new consciousness are really sprouting out, they're coming to the surface, although we're still in that preparation mode. And preparation basically means we're in receiving. We're not yet maybe so much called to take action into those things that are inner impulses. You know, I've shared with you a lot of the new things that I've been receiving at the beginning of this year, but I wasn't yet guided to develop them fully to the last material stage, which was the new unfolding stage for me, is in bringing that, the ethereal, into physical. So a lot of times we feel, wow, things are happening slowly, but it's a progress. It's a state of evolution that we need to tend to in the moment, where it is now, to really know that we cannot hurry through things, because things that are higher consciousness need to develop themselves. They need to ripen. They need to mature to the degree that they just naturally sprout out. They naturally are being birthed. It's not like you're controlling them, you're wanting to force. It's like nature. You can't force nature. You know, when the leaves appear, they just appear. When they fall off the trees, they just do. It's being, you know, it's taking our inspirations from nature and learning from nature. It's how nature, every single component is in alliance. It's in companionship, you know. There's always this friendship in nature. Every part of nature is in companionship. It's something that we, us humans, we have forgotten about, and we often want to do the play it alone, the isolation game of, I'm going to achieve, and I'm going to, you know, achieve myself. This is the old patriarchal, it's basically very much an illusion, because we're not alone, and all the greatest inventions, even though they were apparently coming from one person or one scientist or one person who was very inspired. It was divine inspiration that was of the collective, which means the collective needed to be ready to the proper degree that this thing was able to blossom and to unfold. So we do need to step into cooperation, into partnership, into whatever we have been going through at this time, to also rejoice about, because if we don't do that, we don't honor our growth. We're like growing, feel it like it's a rush, like it's a process, and sometimes it can become very much, there can be this friction, you know, there can be this tension building up when we don't eventually also find the time to slow down and to nurture what we have brought into our consciousness from our physical embodiment. So it's time to be all that we can be, but also to take time to nurture and to cherish that, and to say, wow, I'm celebrating life, because it's not just all about achievement, you know, it's about being in the essence of who we are, and the essence is continuously growing and ripening. So when we learn to work with our essence, we will learn to work beyond the mode of achievement and constant, you know, seeking that success, but the internal value of who we are. A lot of times Ascension pioneers have been having this need to constantly be of service, to constantly do something. But when you awaken to your inner enlightenment, you see that you are of the service when you just are yourself, when you're such a luminescent being that your service is a natural act of reverence for life, of giving and receiving and flow. It's not something you strive to do. It's not something you do for outer recognition. You know, I've shared with you in the beginning about this. Sometimes people copy others. A lot of times people want to be in the spotlight. So if they do something which maybe they see it brought someone else in the spotlight without asking themselves, wait a minute, why is that person in the spotlight and why do I wish to be? Is there any personal agenda behind it? Is it really for the reverence of sacred service? Because when I started doing what I do with Ascension Pioneers, I only started to share my wisdom. I didn't even put myself a name. Everything that was unfolding was an essence, and it took years of work. And I'm still not even halfway there where Spirit, you know, says, okay, this is an ending station. This is it. It's just cycles within cycles, and it takes constant nurture, constant devotion. So it's not something that will make you famous overnight. It's not something you achieve overnight. Our ascension is a beautiful effort of devotion that is in constant flux, and it's in this beautiful process of love that is continuously growing, expanding, unfolding, connecting together with other parts of the ascending realities. So knowing that it's not just us, we're not an isolated unit, but we have to know it starts with us. So with this in mind, what's taking place is a lot of feline essence is emerging. So as you see, I'm wearing all these feline patterns. And the Spirit showed me this, and I just had a dream, I think 2 nights ago. I'm recording this at the end of November, don't forget that. And I had the dream, all of a sudden I was in the forest and a bobcat appeared, which was kind of had these stripes of a cream and orange color. And I was like, whoa! And the cat was just there, it was a wild cat. And I looked at the cat. At first I felt a little bit of fear, and then was like, okay, she's just standing there. She just stood there, observed. She was in her power. And you know, cats really represent that energy of power without needing to fight for power. They're so beautiful, these creatures. They're just totally independent. They're being in their essence, but they also know how to be in power through silence. So this means you don't always have to verbalize everything out. You don't always have to like, blah, blah, blah. You know, lots of chatter coming out. You know, when I was talking to my mother a lot of times, and she was very rash in how she spoke, and I said, look, you have to learn that in the art of speaking and expressing yourself, which is your heart and your throat, and then all of your being coming out through your physical expression, sometimes we're like, okay, to ears and to mouth very quickly. It's not just, okay, you hear something and then quickly verbalize it out. Whether it's internal or external hearing, it always needs to be processed by that. I talk about this higher vision, which is not just your third eye, but it's your crown, your third eye, your higher heart merging in this point somewhere, located somewhere around here. And it's like your personal kaleidoscope. So everything you receive, you filter through that first, and then later, as you process it, you verbalize it out, because otherwise it's too rash. It can be lots of mind chatter. It can be lots of things that are unnecessary, which means that they take a lot of energy sometimes to process. When we produce things like words, whatever it is, like I said before, if it's not from the essence, if it's just the external, it will especially require energy that is surface energy. It's not the deep energy of a personal enlightenment. So that feline essence is being in that power without a need to be powerful, and simply being in the observation, and observation already changes things. It's already putting focus into what you're observing, and you're already changing it by that. So, okay, now let's move on to the astrology. In the end of November, which was 19 and 20th, Neptune went back direct because it was for a few months retrograde. And Neptune is very important because it's the primary station for higher spirituality in our life. And as we know this, it plays an important part. Personally, for me, it's very important because I have my galactic degree center in my astrology in Neptune. So I have Neptune in those galactic degrees of the galactic core, which means that I come here to bring this higher spirituality, and this connects me to many different realms, and I gather everything from there, and that's how I share it. So for a lot of those beings who are here to bring that higher essence of higher spirituality, not that just this earthly spirituality we have been going through and it never changes, it's always constant. Now we're moving into another age. It's time to bring that through, although not a lot of people have that seed. So we're planting these seeds of higher spirituality. And when planet like Neptune, which is huge, can be retrograde, we can feel that almost like losing that sense of that higher connection or something like that. So when it went back direct, I felt this instant shift. It was so profound, almost like being, whoop, you know, like zapped back into your core. And I will share with you, and I've shared this with you before, about my course. I'll talk about in the end how you can read your own galactic signature and how you can work with your astrology, not in a karmic way, because remember, karma is an old word. It no longer is a benefit in our ascension. We're working with cycles of transcendence, and we're working with being in our galactic greater purpose without thinking, you know, this karmic constant wheel of reincarnation, which is basically old. We're never transcending it from the mentality that created it, okay? So we need to bypass it in a way that we transcend it. So this was a huge shift. A lot of you sensitive ones probably felt it. And there was this huge spiritual surge of energy that came through that shifting. So this means that at this time, there was a lot of preparation for our higher spiritual work, which will now slowly start to take place, especially unfolding during the next few years. I've shared this with you. This timeline of 2012 to 2018 is important, but from 2015 until 2018, there will be lots of this, more in the external sense of this preparation. So first, there was this preparation that was maybe more internal, you know, through the purging years that we have from 2012 to 2015. The next 3 years, which is the next trimester, will be more of an external preparation as well, this build-up. So how also energy shifted a lot was with the shift of the the moon nodes, and they shifted from the polarity of Libra and Aries into Virgo and Pisces. I'm not an astrologer myself, please don't forget that. Even in my course, I teach through archetypes, through divine archetypes, which is just the higher view that you don't need so much of this, which was maybe important for this cycle, you know, of incarnations, but we're moving into a more refined cycle now where we're going to work more with divine archetypes, not so much with needing to learn every single fact in detail. We're going to transcend that and move into a new level. So this Virgo Pisces polarity brings to us this higher spirituality again, because, you know, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, or vice versa, and Virgo is that sign of Hermit. Virgo directly correlates with the archetype of Hermit. And the next year, I've shared this with you before, we will be in the 9 universal year, which is the Hermit, which is the wisdom. So we're going to move into a wisdom year next year, from the inner alchemy to then sharing and becoming the living embodiment of this wisdom. So there's no coincidence. You'll see what the tarot guidance was for this month, which directly coincides with this. And this shifting of the new moon, well, basically just the moon nodes, not the new moon nodes, brings us this higher refinement of our physicality. I've shared this with you. Virgo is the great purifier. It refines the physicality, and this is about purity and perfection and healing. There's a lot of this healing, and that's why this archetype we're working with is Hilarion, which is this spiritual healing in a way. And through inner wholeness, of course, becoming your own master healer and developing things and tools that are just for us. And watch my video on developing ascension tools. This was shared within my exercises, ascension exercises video, yeah. And this describes the new cycle, the new macro cycle we're in. And this is in alignment with Jupiter being in Virgo as well. So Jupiter is our planet of how we expand. And through the nodes moving in that same polarity, it's like a new theme we're playing out. A theme of our expansion is Virgo and Pisces. So at this time, we're also reminded of something. Spirit reminded me this is very important for this time. So what's taking place is, you know, usually share with you when there's new moons or full moons, and I can still do that. So we have, at the end of November, we had, on the 29th, we had the full moon in Gemini, which was again related to those seeding of those new ideas and inventions, and a lot of new communication coming through after that cycle. But the new moon in December on the 11th will be in Sagittarius, which is more extroverted, and the full moon in December 25th, which will be Christmas Day. So there'll be lots of light coming through, especially because it happens, I've seen it happens in universal time, it happens in 11:11 of the clock, which is, again, it's another gateway. But it feels there's going to be a lot of light coming through. And here, Spirit reminded me that I need to address the cycles of rituals, because I see a lot of people, and when they address astrology, some people talk about solar astrology, some people talk about lunar astrology, so these moon scopes, sometimes they call them. So they take cycles, you know, in solar astrology, you would take cycles from when the sun is in a certain sign. In the moon, you would take full and new moon cycles. So they would say from new moon to full moon is one cycle. And in solar astrology, you would say, okay, from this sign to that sign, now we have a solar cycle. Again, you know, a tiny microcycle within a greater macro cycle. But the thing is that in our ascension, we really need to now learn to find our own inner timelines and cycles, because a lot of times we do rituals in these new moons, full moons, and we just do them. It's almost like automatic pilot mode. But the thing is that Spirit shared with me that it's time to transcend that and do rituals when you're guided. So I didn't even know that. I knew, but I forgot it was that day because I live in the now. So when I came to this spot, it was just yesterday, and I created this fairy circle, and I felt this huge shift of energy, and I forgot that this was the day when Neptune shifts again. And I was just guided to do this beautiful ritual, and was energy shifted immensely. And a lot of us were working with the unseen realms. We just know and feel energy, although we can't always see it. A lot of people, when they see something, they want instant results. It's not how it is in higher spiritual realms. You need to trust the greater unfolding of things within divine plan of perfection. That's what I always say. And you have to believe it, although you don't always see it. But you feel it, you know it, okay? And so it became very important for us to work with our own cycles. So when you feel an energy shift, you feel this outburst of energy, do a ceremony, do a ritual that's just for you. Don't even label it what it's for. Just feel the intention and just play with it. You create with it. You know, the Empress is also an archetype of creativity, of creation. It's not just nurture, but nurture through creativity in a way. So Spirit reminded me that rituals are here for the energy sealing. So a lot of the things that we based on moon cycles, solar cycles, it's okay, they still exist. But because we're shifting into our own personal empowerment, which is our own ascension, where we are in our timeline, you know what I share? It's basically just general guidance. It won't always apply to everyone at the same time. You know, when you watch it, probably it does, in a way, whatever you resonate with at that time. But it's very important that we develop our own timelines and our own inner schedule in a way. Not through control, I don't mean that. But it's very important to empower ourselves this way, okay? So what's taking place with this December moons, it's a very interesting pattern, because on the 11th it's the Sagittarius, which is that freedom again, it's that exploration of the new. But on the December 25th, which is the Christmas day, it's in Cancer. So it does relate to that partnership energy, because Cancer is also about nurture in a way, but it's also nurture through what is home for us. It's soul, family that speaks to us, people that speak to us, home base, what is our belonging base, and that nurture with feeling of belonging with a certain group or a particular family or soul family. So it does relate with that Empress archetype as well. So it's important that we work with our personal ascension timelines and guidelines, not just general guidelines, you know, to know where we fit into the greatness of what we feel is shifting. Because we have to start trusting the unseen. The unseen is there. But people who don't trust, they just want instant results, they want instant gratification, they want things to always be on the surface of things. They forget about the divinity in all things, which is an essence, okay? It's an essence. It's an essence that we came here to embody, and that's how we bring the energy of divinity into this earthly plane. So now I'm going to just mention the tarot archetypes that came through for this month. The theme is teaching. It's the Hierophant in tarot, which is about wisdom. It relates again with preparing for what awaits in the next year, which is the Hermit year, which is the year of the wisdom. And the challenge for us will be number 13, as always. This is the infinite void, this is the transformation, the death, the rebirth. A lot of us went through this in November. We are pioneers, you know, we always hold the energy a little bit in advance, but most of the beings who are following this energy, these patterns, are going to experience this death energy, and as a challenge, of course, because a lot of us don't embrace that. We want to go against it. We like that which is fixed and already known to us, and we kind of like to cling on to it. But in truth, you know, when we make changes with the approach of not needing to change, but knowing that change comes naturally, then things just naturally change. It's how it is. So as I've shared with you, a lot of us as Ascension Pioneers, we came here to be with the Gaia, to be with the planetary evolution and expansion, and not separated from living our lives in joy and in fulfillment, because that's the essence of how we live. It's the essence of how we serve. So our lives as an essence becoming that conscious energy that's propelling the shift forward. And working with the unseen is important because you work with divine focus and seeing what is the potential for what needs to evolve and expand. I've just been reading in this example from Dolores Cannon's book when this person was talking about working with observation and intention. So talking about the nature of change, a lot of times we think that change is trying to resist certain things and then trying to create different pathways. But the person shared that just by observing and wanting the outcome to be what it is, so let's say there's a barrier to that outcome which needs to be, and just focusing on what is the final outcome, which is divine outcome, and that brings the divine focus into it. So we never do stop work with the divine intention, with the focus, especially when things feel like they're not shifting, when we're in that stagnation mode and things are rebirthing within us. We sometimes feel like, whoa, things are so uneventful, nothing's happening. And we forget about the unseen, which can be felt when we say, okay, what is the real truth behind that, which I perceive as something, but maybe it's not. So it's the nature of change is observing something and seeing the outcome that needs to be and bringing so much attention to it that those things that we perceive sometimes as obstacles or limitations, they naturally don't become the pathway anymore, because we create new pathway, but the outcome is what we intend. So maybe in the meantime, during that creation of that outcome, which is the preferred outcome of divinity, it's just so natural for us. So in working with the focus means that we're always keep intact with that alignment, whatever we perceive it might be. Or, you know, it's sometimes the energy would feel surreal, is more real than that what you perceive with your limited senses. So we're really working with the unseen worlds, and it's time to embrace that, because when we were children, we knew how to do that. We talked to nature, we talked to beings, we had such a vivid imagination. And a lot of times as adults, we neglect this, you know, and we don't even teach our children that, or we don't allow them to show us this, because they do know, except if we kind of limit them as well. So it's important for us, first of all, that we really start to embrace all feelings, because that's the nature of that rebirth. A lot of things, and every time basically when we put a button that says pause or stop with that emotion, a feeling that needs to evolve, because otherwise the emotion, which is energy in motion, wouldn't be there. It's there because it needs to evolve. It wants to mature. It wants to be ripened into something and be in this transcendental mode of enlightened emotion, that pure divine feeling. And every time we put a pause or stop, a negation, a no, that goes into our subconscious, and with this unfolding in every cycle of this rebirth, it comes out. So many times you think, okay, I'm at a certain point of evolution, I no longer feel fear, or I no longer feel this and that, and then it comes up. It's just a different aspect of what you have been putting your pause button on, or what you have been neglecting still. It's just maybe a different aspect. So it's like all these aspects suddenly shift the entire wheel. You know, it's like the wheel. It like shifts and shifts and shifts, and just before it goes to the other cycle again, you know, those tiny shifts finally align, everything matches, it's like divine decree comes, and it's like a full shift, yeah? So it's kind of like that. And these feelings, they don't need our denial anymore, you know? We are too enlightened to feel that, or we're too spiritual to feel that. It's just another stop button. It's just another pause. So we need to bring all that up, because it needs to come out. A lot of times for us Essential Pioneers, it will be of the collective. And this is the next story I need to share, which is about these mass events as timeline shifters. We had this massive event in Europe, as you know, and people have been placing so much focus on it. And we forget that, why is this focus there as what's wrong with the world, rather than what is this on a bigger level? Because a lot of times when these events happen, and we will feel them, Ascension Pioneers will feel them, because when this happened, I was supposed to have my dentist, and then it got canceled, but we went there to one city and we walked around the lake as well, still. but the energy was different. The energy was not how it felt in the beginning. So there was a shift in energy, and I felt, wait a minute, why do things feel so weird? And I didn't know physically what was to happen, but it was felt. It was felt as this weird energy, and something's happening behind the scenes, and it wasn't pleasant. But the thing is, when these mass events that people sometimes, play out as the perpetrator and the victim, they forget that it's very easy to point with the finger as the opposers and what they're doing and what's being done to us as a humanity, rather than seeing our own shadow aspects and what are we still recognizing that's taking place on the planet, all the forms of manipulation. It's not for us to participate with it, but it does require a conscious focus and attention what's happening. Because on that time, there was the weekend, we watched this movie which was called American Ultra, and it was about, basically very much revealing the nature of what they're doing with the mind programming. Sometimes people call this MK Ultra. These programs and these things actually exist, and they kind of filter people who are in this pure survival mode, and they place these kind of like tiny little implants within them so that when they activate them, they really do these things, and they can perform certain killings or whatever they want them to do is to create this fear. And this is really just something playing out in order to shift timelines. But because we have this fear mentality, people around the world come together still sometimes more than in the form of awareness what's really behind this. They come together in terms of what's really wrong, and they're still playing this us and them game. Which in truth, when you see why these events are created, it's not just for them or what them would want, it's also for the most mass humans that are still not awake. They're not aware what's happening. So if you don't know what manipulates you, you can't know that force, so you can't empower yourself with it. It doesn't mean you feed it energy, because it's something that we as enlightened beings do not do. We know what's taking place, but we feed the energy to the shifting of what I spoke about before, as that outcome, that divine outcome, that pure outcome. So even though there's these limitations and things that we perceive as such, they're basically almost like tools, they're doorways. And these events, oftentimes they happen on a collective scale to shift the timeline. So what Spirit said today, when I was meditating after my run, was that, many people spoke about the great grand cataclysm or, great catastrophes that would happen on the planet. So in truth, that was never meant to be, because the timelines were altered. There was a different choosing of reality, and this planet is too precious to just be ruined. It was never meant this way. So the thing is that we've come so far, but the thing is that there's still some components missing in the general shift. So what was created was rather some of the tinier events that will shift the mass consciousness gradually and more in terms of being a process. So let us not be impatient with what's happening and think sometime in our lives that things are uneventful, that things are boring, nothing's moving, it's static. Try to learn to feel the unseen, feel the energy. We need to learn. That was the whole year, what it was about, being an inner alchemist. Feel the energy rather than just to be satisfied with what's shown to you, what you think it's supposed to happen, what people say it's going to happen. Even with predictions like astrology, these are just the seeds of stellar energy, but how do we embody them? It's still our journey. So these events are actually created. They were created through us, what we wanted as the shifting event. Remember when the event came with, I think it was that lion? Yeah, it was the lion that was murdered. And that actually caused people to write different laws, and they were putting different legislation, and they were getting these different things, I think I just found out about that recently. So they do cause a certain shift in people's reactions and responses. And it is for a certain reason that we can't always see. So we need to see them as timeline shifters and guidelines to different choices rather than just the perpetrator and the victims, because that's how we still are in the fear mode and we see things as us and them. So how do we most basically shift the energy rather than being with fear, being in creativity with love, is whatever takes place on maybe a mass scale as an event that brings out people's attention. And instead of feeding those almost like black tunnels of energy, where there's a lot of energy vampirizing happening, and when we don't know that, we continue to participate in it. Rather than that, we choose to be playful. Sometimes it seems like, how can you be in the playful mode? How can you be so cheerful when there's things like that happening? Because that's what shifts the timelines. And people who don't work with greater collective energies and how you work with them, they don't know this. So they have lots of judgment because they see only with physical eyes. They don't see with an internal vision of true love. and what actually is needed at those times. So there's people who are doing lots of work behind the scenes, never even speaking about it. They're just doing it. They're just silently doing their thing. You know the stories from Anastasia, you know, the Cedar series, and she was presented as this master who's doing a lot of work just being in her own space and nature, and she has these abilities and amazing capability of how her speed of thought travels. And lots of the things she does, nobody will ever know about. So there's lots of these beings who work on levels that are not just this mass of, oh, what's happening on this planet? Oh my gosh, wow, ooh, you know, boo-hoo. It's compassion. True compassion comes from the understanding first what's taking place on this planet, why, and why we have all chosen these experiences. What are the volunteering waves here to do? Each of us needs to know that within our own self, because we're here to do the work. We're not here to, you know, blah, blah, blah. Who's who, who's doing what, you know, who's copying who. That is not of the main importance here. The main importance is doing the work. And I know I came here to do my job, and that's it. That's all I'm focused on. So this playful spirit, this joyful sense of being shifts the energy. It keeps the focus on that which is our desired outcome, rather than being too much involved and entangled. And some people do participate in it that way, which again will create ripple effects for them. And maybe again, like it was with changing those legislations on wild animals, maybe this will change something, you know, long term as well. And that's how it's all done. But we need to know what is our own part in it through spirit, rather than just participating in with these events how most people do, because that won't change anything. We need to know our job. We need to know what we're here for. So instead of pouring this negativity to events as an outside force, we need to recognize our own shadow in it and see what maybe we don't know about things, why they're happening this way. So beginning our higher spiritual work on other higher levels, and not feeding the dark containers of this dark energy, which is like the energy that needs to constantly be brought into it, because the beings who have totally separated themselves from the creation life force, which is the pure life force that it's never ending, the eternal flow of source light, they need to feed elsewhere. So that's why they do things in this way, but they don't know, you know. Well, a lot of times they do know, but because they don't want to return to source that way, they still kind of with stubbornness participate in that. They kind of hold on to that, because for a long time it was the only thing they knew. You know, so when you have that compassion, you know that it's not easy for them as well. We might think, wow, it's easy being the perpetrator. It's not. You know, it's not, because on a soul level, these beings can be very damaged. They have their imprints of their energy can be so damaged that they need lots of work. And those of you reading Dolores books, you know that there's a lot of souls working with these types of souls. And when we see that it's not easy, because they have maybe taken this game too seriously, that they said, whoa, one time they said, I want to play this. I want to play the opposer. I want to play the against ascending nature of all creation. And so maybe they got so involved in that they don't know how to go out. So when we transcend this us-them, this dualistic polarity, we will see differently. And this was all designed for our own mastery. So as soon as we know something and how it functions, it no longer can manipulate us, it cannot control us, because we know how it functions. So, so we're still in preparation time. I've shared with you, not just for this next year, but these trimesters of energy that I've shared with you, these tiny cycles that we're going through. And I've shared that from 2012 to 2015 was almost like going through that purgatory, going through that transformation. And then 2015 to 18 is a more outwardly preparation time and connecting time. Then from there on, it will be a different phase, you know, it will be a different preparation. People will be more on a mass level prepared for these streams of higher consciousness. So I've shared with you before how this process goes. It always begins with the seed. There's an alchemical process of seeding, and then it goes on with activation, and simultaneously you have integration and release, which brings us to the embodiment. So we're moving deeper in our spirituality and transcending the external cycles that most often we still count on. You know, the solar cycle is bringing us something, the lunar cycle is bringing us, but the thing is that we are our own I am. We are our own vortex of pure source light. So the more we know this, we discover what functions for us. How do we function as a vortex? And that is why I created this course of deciphering our own galactic signature and what works for us and how do we serve in all creation. This also ties into my video that I did last year on cosmic servants in creation. So check that out if you haven't yet. And this all deals in remembering this galactic purpose, which is beyond what we perceive now as karmic. it's like this beautiful destination we're moving towards. Many beings already have that, and many beings are, you know, evolving into that, into these higher codes. So this means we're not simply here to just be, to just have our realities, you know, glasses on, not seeing what's taking place, but we're working with the planetary person purpose and galactic purpose, which are higher versions of us. So we came here for Gaia and to mold this new reality through that focus of what is our desired divine plan destined outcome, rather than getting involved in those obstacles, which basically are just teachers in a way. So this is bringing the ethereal into matter, and often this process will seem, sometimes, like I've shared before, it will seem like slow and it's not moving, but this is because we don't understand creation. When we understand the principles of creation and how things work, we will have such love for it, and we will know that this is a process that we are a part of. And as we're evolving the self, life evolves. So this is only a 3D illusion that things are slow and, you know, things are linear. It's not really true, because when we work with the unseen world, we will see that sometimes things already are, but people don't yet embrace them as a reality, so they're not living it. Doesn't mean that energetically the potential is not already planted. It's there, you know. That's why it feels some people are already living it, some people are not, but it's for all. The seed is there. It's just a choice then of waking up to that seed and becoming activated in it, and then moving towards the conscious embodiment of it. So this perfection of all creation and everything moves simultaneously and in divine timing. It's not linear process. And activating ourselves and our galactic purpose is the next step, because we will move on to these higher reaches of our being and the potential that we can bring to this new earth. And this means having also galactic knowledge, not just living this daily reality, because as beautiful as it can be, it's not the only thing that's taking place. Watch my video on galactic activations and galactic signature. And this is something that we know as higher spirituality, not just what we know now as earthly spirituality. A lot of us, we have knowings of so much more, and we know there's so much more, but we have to be very patient with when it's time for us to be called, and when people are ready for this higher cosmic wisdom to come. And that's why I developed this course on reading our galactic signature, reading our star map. You can find that on my page under galactic signature. Write me up if you're interested, and if you don't find the details. But also check out the monthly spiritual, monthly spirit attunement and guidance. And again, it's about moving into our essence. It's what is coming through at this time. And really, really remember who we are in essence. It's not always what we do, it's not what we achieve, it's the success that is the internal embodiment of our purity, which is that liquid light that we are before we become physical, and being born of this cosmic union, rather than perceiving ourselves as just this human being. You know, it's so much more than we can imagine, but we have to start plugging into that reality and trusting the unseen. So mastery courses are still available as always, but I really invite you to take a look into the Galactic Signature course, because it's about not doing readings for others. It's just about becoming your own sovereign and learning to work with the galactic codes and how to empower yourselves, knowing where you are moving, where you're heading towards, and then working with that, working not just on a karmic level, because a lot of people still believe they need to solve karmic things, and yet this is no longer the reality. They're already free. You know, it's just a matter of choice. What you're going to do in a greater purpose, just choose it, live it. So that's why I designed this. So you're really welcome to check that out. As always, I wish you a beautiful month with so much light, so many blessings, and enjoy your holiday time, of course, with that holiday spirit, which is eternal. It's our joy that we share with just pure reverence of life and being alive, because life just naturally alters and changes by us living it. It's not something we are controlling. Life cannot not be lived, you know, it's so simple in truth. So enjoy your beautiful month, and remember, this is the beyond. It's not just for this month, what we're moving into, and hold your essence as so beautiful and sacred. And with so much grace, of course, always love is in the power. I'll talk to you next time at the next update. Stay radiant, and thank you so much for supporting, for donating, for being here, for sharing your beautiful magic. And bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.